Coming on here to give my thoughts on the major news that just broke a couple hours ago. Probably everyone has already heard about it, and that's the TNA signing of Hulk Hogan. Now, what is this going to mean for TNA? Is this going to be good or bad from TNA? Now, kind of think on the side of business-wise, it's going to be good for TNA. It's going to be good business-wise for TNA. Now, as far as is this going to be good for the overall product, the overall in-ring and television product, don't necessarily know if it's going to do that. Now, as far as, let me get to the first side, the business side, the side that's probably good for in TNA. Now, obviously, Hogan is one of the most known wrestling names, and probably is the #1 most wrestler that's known. If you ask anyone, they'll know who Hulk Hogan is. Even though I dislike Hulk Hogan, I am not going to lie that everyone knows who Hulk Hogan is. You go up to any person pretty much in any country and ask them who Hulk Hogan is, they will pretty much 100% of the time, maybe not 100% of the time, but pretty much I would say 98% of the time will know who Hulk Hogan is just from his name. So that is good for TNA right there. They got a star that possibly can increase their ratings. Now, is this necessarily going to increase their ratings where they're going to be competition from WWE? Well, we'll have to wait and see. Now, as far as what I think, is this going to be up to the level of competing with WWE? I don't necessarily think so. I think they're probably going to get their ratings increased maybe to a 1.5 at the lowest, maybe a 1.7. I don't see them breaking that level of a 2.0 because the one thing I feel that they need to do before they even break that level of being a 2.0, which the sign of Hogan does help. That's going to get closer to getting that level of a 2.0. But the one thing that's really going to help them to get that level of even without Hogan, I think they could get a 1.5 if they made their program every week live. That'd be the one thing that I think could already Hogan plus live television and their Impact being live every week. Then I would say their program has a chance to be a 2.0 rating on a Thursday night, but they have to do both of those to get the level of a 2.0. I don't think Hogan just alone will get them to a 2.0. They will have to do live TV as well, because that's the one thing, I mean, with their television product. Obviously, if their product was live, I think their ratings would increase to at least a 0.2 or 0.3 higher, maybe close to a 1.5 now if their program was live every single week, because if it was live, you wouldn't have spoilers, people wouldn't know what's going to happen, because I know a lot of people just like me that, sometimes, every single time, look at the Impact spoilers, and a lot of times I don't really watch Impact fully every single week. Really, the only times I really have recently checked out Impact and watched it fully was the Kurt Angle versus AJ Styles 3-hour Impact. That was pretty much the lead into Bound for Glory, so I had to pretty much watch that, and it was a good show overall. Then you had last week's Impact, the debut of Nigel McGuinness, now known as Desmond Wolfe, and I was very interested with that. Interesting to see how they were gonna how it was going to be showcased on television. It was very well put together, I would say, and it was a breath of fresh air to see some new talent starting to get pushed within TNA, which the signing of Hogan kind of hurts that, because, okay, you got this pay-per-view coming up for TNA, you got Turning Point coming up, and this pay-per-view looks like, a pay-per-view that I think all the, diehard fans of TNA's early years and, diehard, wrestling fans, internet fans, the IWC, the people that, want to see guys like Samoa Joe, Daniels, and Styles utilized in the main event are finally getting what we want to see. We're getting the main event that we want to see in TNA, which is Christopher Daniels versus Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles. And this time it's for the World Heavyweight Championship in the main event, so definitely am interested in that. Looks like the Motor City Machine Guns might be actually becoming the tag team champions if they defeat the British Invasion at Turning Point. Then you got the Desmond Wolfe versus Kurt Angle match, which probably will be a very good match. And they got a match, I think it's on maybe this week's Impact, where they're in a street fight, which can't wait to see how they work with each other. I'm expecting them to have pretty good chemistry with each other. Maybe not in the street fight. It'll probably be just a small taste of what we're getting in the pay-per-view, but I think by the pay-per-view, they'll put on a very incredible match. And I would say that you know, TNA Turning Point is one of those pay-per-views, and this is the first time, because I did order TNA Bound for Glory, and I will be ordering TNA Turning Point. This is the first time in I don't know how long, probably since Hard Justice 2007, because I pretty much ordered every single pay-per-view from TNA before Hard Justice 2007. So this is the first time in almost over close to 2.5 years that I am ordering 2 back-to-back TNA pay-per-views. I'm definitely going to be supporting TNA Turning Point just because they're giving me the type of card that I want. And I think if a lot of us fans that normally watch TNA pay-per-views, just like True Slayer has said and Moral Virus, both of them pretty much said, if you go out of your way and buy this upcoming pay-per-view Turning Point, and you put your money where your mouth is and pretty much show that TNA you're willing to give money if they produce the type of product you want. And I think pretty much everyone, the Turning Point card is something that a lot of fans would want to see. So if you got $30 and if you want to show TNA what type of product that you want to see frequently and you want to see all the time, make TNA Turning Point their biggest pay-per-view buy rate in TNA history, or at least in a long time. If you at least showcase that this pay-per-view is going to be, you know, a bigger sell than what they're expecting, TNA might think, hey, maybe we need to be smart. Maybe we need to keep on continuing with this route of pushing these younger stars. Whereas the signing of Hogan kind of makes me lose a little faith there that TNA is going to start and still push these younger stars, because the signing of Hogan and the signing of Bischoff just makes, you know, everyone, including me, that makes the joke that TNA is nothing more than WCW 2.0. Signing Hogan and Bischoff doesn't help that at all and doesn't showcase your organization is any different. You're just living off, you know, past names. And Hogan, I think he would have made an impact in TNA if he would have signed back in 2003 when he was originally going to sign with TNA, and they were going to do their first 3-hour live pay-per-view, and it was going to be Bound for Glory 2003, and they were going to do the whole Jarrett and Hulk Hogan thing, building off their whole thing to happen at Bash at the Beach 2000. And if he would have signed to TNA back in 2003, I think TNA would have got, you know, huger, faster than what it did, and maybe it would be, you know, a bigger company than what it is now, and maybe would have actually had some early success right there instead of pretty much being nothing more than a stagnant product then as far as how many fans watched it. It was a good product from 2002 to 2005 and pretty much before they had their Spike TV television contract, but it wasn't really one of those products that did, you know, extremely large buy rates or, you know, had, you know, a lot of people tuning in to Impact when they were on FSN. And Hogan, if he would have signed back then, I think it would have had a bigger impact. Now, Hogan signing now is going to have some impact, but like I said, I think they need to have live television plus the sign of Hogan to even get the level of a 2.0 rating. So we'll have to just wait and see what this does. Now, like I said, I kind of lose a little faith that this is going to help TNA improve, because signing Hogan just pretty much showcases that you're just going to live off these old names, and AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, Samoa Joe, and a lot of these younger stars are pretty much going to be delegated to being jobbers and being in squash matches for Hogan, because I'm expecting by the end of the year, you know, I expect AJ Styles to walk out of this triple threat as world champion. At the next pay-per-view, I won't be shocked if they do Hogan versus AJ Styles, and AJ Styles does a job for Hulk Hogan. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully I'm wrong, and hopefully they don't push him to that level, but I'll be shocked if they don't. As far as Eric Bischoff, now, Eric Bischoff, I'll give him credit, even though I hated WCW mainly because I was a huge ECW fan back in the day, and I just despised WCW other than a few things they did good. And Eric Bischoff, the thing I'll give to him, he does create good storylines, and he does do good at, you know, creating good storylines, but the one thing he does terrible with is producing new stars, creating younger stars. And as much as I hate Vince Russo, and as much as a lot of other people hate Vince Russo, the one thing I'll give Vince Russo over Eric Bischoff is, okay, Russo will do some of his Crash TV bullshit, which I despise and hate. And he doesn't really know how to utilize some talent. But the one thing I'll give him is he's at least a whole lot more interested. He's actually interested in pushing younger stars over the stars of the past. And that's the one thing I'll give Vince Russo credit right there. Now, does he necessarily know how to create the good storyline for them and make them interesting? No, that's the problem right there. If you kind of, still had, and plus the other thing is, I don't know what this is going to do with Vince Russo within TNA, because I cannot see him and Hogan working together unless they want to bring Jarrett back and, kind of do something with the whole Hogan and Jarrett thing. But I think that's been long and done. I think if they would have done that 6 years ago, where it was only like 3 years after the whole Bash at the Beach 2000 thing, it could have actually, made big splashes in the wrestling industry then. Now it won't. As far as what Hogan's going to do, I kind of dislike the signing, but business-wise, I guess I got to understand why they did it. As far as Dixie Carter's kind of questionable signing Hogan, because he's pretty banged up, and I don't know if he really can go in the ring. So is Hogan going to be an active wrestler or whatnot in TNA, or is he just going to be one of those kind of faces of the company that's going to get TNA recognized? Because that's the one thing I'm kind of wondering what Hogan's going to do. But the way he works in the ring, it's not like he does, a lot of stuff in the ring. So he probably will still be able to wrestle, but he is pretty banged up from, not only, reports, but even from Hogan himself. He even says he's almost too banged up to even work anymore. So it's going to be like one of those things, can Hogan even pull off a match, even though he doesn't really do much in the ring? Can he still even pull off what he does in the ring? Like I said, as far as Eric Bischoff, that's the one thing I really dislike. Out of the whole thing, the Hogan part I can deal with. Bischoff, I do not like at all, because the one person within creative that I will give him credit with some storylines, but he doesn't do the greatest job, is Bischoff. Sure, he got WCW to the level of almost defeating WWF, but that was for the other thing that you had Hogan there. You had him being a huge heel with the NWO. The group was so well put together, and it just came off so good that, and plus you had the whole thing with, Sting as well, and you just had some things just click so well that it wasn't really necessarily Bischoff's great, expert booking. It was just, you had a great pairing of Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and Hogan, and it worked so good for them. And plus, they had live television as well. That was another thing that was, back then, WWF was taped on Monday nights, and Nitro was live, and that really helped them a lot as well. So he was a little innovative there. So maybe he can do some good things with TNA. I don't know. I'm very questionable about the Bischoff thing and the Hogan signing as well, because I think this is going to do some good for TNA. It's going to do some bad for TNA as well. Just as long as they don't, bring Hogan in and have him squash, AJ Styles, or squash your world champion, whoever it is, if AJ does lose the title in the triple threat, which I highly doubt he will, but say if he does, hopefully, Hogan doesn't come in and next month, not next month, but the December pay-per-view, he wins the World Heavyweight Championship, because that's going to be one thing that's really going to turn me off from TNA if Hogan comes in there, runs roughshod, and becomes world champion fairly quick. Like I said, we'll just have to wait and see how this turns out. I'm kind of have mixed feelings about it, because I understand it on the aspect of business-wise, but I kind of disagree with the signing of it, because I think TNA was starting to turn the corner around, and they are doing some good stuff with their Turning Point pay-per-view. And as far as Hogan, obviously, him signing TNA just came out a couple hours ago, and this is going to get a lot of press attention for TNA, because he is going to be on Larry King tonight. He was originally just going to be on there plugging his book, but obviously now with the signing of TNA, he's going to probably plug that on there as well. Then he's going to be on Howard Stern later this week, so he's going to plug TNA on there as well. Then he's going to be on the Bubba Love Sponge show, and he's going to be having a lot of book signings. So this is going to get TNA's name out there, but the thing is this going to really increase their ratings to the level they're expecting? I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. I kind of expect them to improve, but not improve to the level where they're going to be competition for WWE quite yet. They're a little ways off from that. Not necessarily know if it's going to do that. Now, as far as, let me get to the first side, the business side, the side that's probably good for in TNA. Now, obviously, Hogan is one of the most known wrestling names, and probably is the number one most wrestler that's known. If you ask anyone, they'll know who Hulk Hogan is. Even though I dislike Hulk Hogan, I am not going to lie that everyone knows who Hulk Hogan is. You go up to any person pretty much in any country Coming on here to give my thoughts on the major news that just broke a couple hours ago. Probably everyone has already heard about it, and that's the TNA signing of Hulk Hogan. Now, what is this going to mean for TNA? Is this going to be good or bad from TNA? Now, kind of think on the side of business-wise, it's going to be good for TNA. It's going to be good business-wise for TNA. Now, as far as is this going to be good for the overall product, the overall in-ring and television product, don't necessarily have. Even without Hogan, I think they could get a 1.5 if they made their program every week live. That'd be the one thing that I think could already Hogan plus live television and their Impact being live every week. Then I would say their program has a chance to be a 2.0 rating on a Thursday night, but they have to do both of those to get the level of a 2.0. I don't think Hogan just alone will get them to a 2.0. Up to the level of competing with WWE? I don't necessarily think so. I think they're probably going to get their ratings increased maybe to a 1.5 at the lowest, maybe a 1.7. I don't see them breaking that level of a 2.0 because the one thing I feel that they need to do before they even break that level of being a 2.0, which the signing of Hogan does help. That's going to get closer to getting that level of a 2.0. But the one thing that's really going to help them to get that level tree and ask them who Hulk Hogan is, they will pretty much 100% of the time, maybe not 100% of the time, but pretty much I would say 98% of the time will know who Hulk Hogan is just from his name. So that is good for TNA right there. They got a star that possibly can increase their ratings. Now, is this necessarily going to increase their ratings where they're going to be competition from WWE? Well, we'll have to wait and see. Now, as far as what I think, is this going to be